Hello again. This is the second part. We're going to talk about getting this Raspberry Pi booting off the NFS server with TFTP and PXE. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you into this screen here, and what I'm going to show you here is basically the command to switch the Raspberry Pi from one operating system to another. So I'm going to show you what it looks like with the full Raspberry environment. So we're going to go to file lib TFTP boot, and then our IP address, and this is actually part of the MAC address, so I found that out since the last video. So that's part of the MAC address, and that's actually put there by DNS mask service when the device requests an IP address, and you've got the TFTP unique root setting on the DNS mask configuration file. You will get this directory created, and this is actually where you need to put your files. Not sure why we have the IP address and the MAC address there, but anyway, so when we go in here, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to ensure that in my command.txt file we have rasbust, which is the full Raspberry Buster version. Okay, so that's the full environment, the full Raspberry operating system with all the packages and the user interface. So we're going to see that booting up very shortly. Stand by. Okay, so here's demo number one. Alright, so on this pile of cables, my messy desk here, you can see the Pi. It's a Pi 3. There's no USB devices plugged in, only the Ethernet. And underneath, as you can see here, there's no SD card plugged in either. Alright, so what we're going to do is we've plugged in our screen here, HDMI cable. I'm going to attempt with one hand to plug in the power, and this Raspberry Pi is then going to boot off the network. It's going to, let's talk about what it's doing as it's doing it. So here we go. I'm just going to plug this power supply into the Pi now. It's always a bit tricky to get that in there. Let me just check this around the right way. Yes, it is. Okay, here we go. So lights are coming on now, and the Pi is starting up. So first thing it's going to do is get itself an IP address from the DHCP server. And then the DHCP is going to tell it some PXE information. The PXE server will then communicate to the Pi, download from a TFTP server. Here we go, it's starting up. From a TFTP server, it's going to send down the boot files and get the Pi started. And then the Pi is going to mount the NFS server, which has already happened now. So it's now connected to the NFS server. The root file system is coming from the NFS server mount point. And there is Raspberry. So that's the Raspberry operating system based on Debian in its full glory, with the graphical user interface and all the applications installed. So so that's what we're doing first, and then the next bit is to just shut down the device. The great thing about having the file system over the network is I could just pull the cable. Most of the time it doesn't cause any problems at all. In actual fact, it rarely causes any problems. I haven't had any problems doing that. And then you point the TFTP server to another place, and another operating system will start. So we'll show you that in a second. But there we go. So that's the first demo. Raspberry Pi starting up completely off the network. In my opinion, this is absolutely how we should be getting these Pis started. We shouldn't bother with local storage, assuming you have more than just the Pi. Of course, you need a server and a network as well. But and the next big step, I think, would be power over Ethernet, where you just have the Ethernet cable then completely powering the device and booting it and managing it completely over one cable. Anyway, next demo coming up shortly. Okay, so now you've seen that Raspberry Pi boot up. What we're going to do now is go from that Raspberry operating system full version that you saw boot over the NFS server we're going to change the configuration file here. I'll click in the right window, and we're going to go here to command .text, and we're going to change this line here, and we're going to change it from rasbust to buster1, which is the directory where I have the base Debian operating system. No user, no GUI or anything like that. Just a really nice base operating system image. Just to show you the directories here on the NFS server. Let's zoom out, NFS, and there's the number of operating system root images there. So we've gone from rasbust to buster1. So when it's booting into buster1, this is the root file system that the Raspberry Pi will load during its boot process. So let's go and see that in action now. Okay, here we go again. So there's a Raspberry Pi there, no devices plugged into it, no SD card in the back. Now we've just changed over on the TFTP boot server in the command.txt file to boot off a different NFS location. So we should see a different operating system load. This time it should be just a straight Debian 10.04. So let's see what happens now. This is what I like about this. You can switch operating systems very simply for all these Raspberry Pis that you have. They're now booting off the network completely. So here we go, here's the rainbow screen. And this should look a little bit different to the previous one. This should look quite different in that it shouldn't have a GUI load. This should be a text-based operating system only. No GUI. Should just boot to a command prompt, or boot to a login prompt, should I say. And there we are, boot to a login prompt. Okay, and that, as you can see, is the raw Debian operating system there. So no GUI whatsoever. And actually, that's the operating system I boot into most of the time, the one without the user interface. And I just then get the Raspberry Pi, put it in the cupboard, plug in an Ethernet cable into it, and boot it up, and then reboot it remotely, of course, and hardly ever need to go to the device at all. So there we go, booting the Raspberry Pi using PXE, TFTP, and an NFS mount point over the network. Nothing locally, no local storage whatsoever.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the demonstrations there. I think there's more and more use cases for these Raspberry Pis moving forward. I think we're going to see them everywhere, all over the house, and being embedded in devices that are just kind of essential to our daily lives. I have now got a Raspberry Pi managing my swimming pool system with some pretty advanced Python scripting, controlling all of the processes of the swimming pool system, the pump when it comes on, the temperature, and it's a web interface, so you can actually get now through this web access to the swimming pool system, and you can, even when you're away from home, you can make sure that it's coming on at the right time. You can remotely switch it on and off, the pump and the cleaner, and you can also make sure that things like freeze protect are working when you're away. Make sure that the pump is coming on when temperatures get really low, so that nothing freezes up, and there's no kind of mechanical issues with low temperatures. So thanks for watching, and more videos on the Raspberry Pi coming soon. Thanks.